Okay, welcome to the deep dive. This one is tailored just for you,
Yep, and today we're unpacking a whole stack of sources.
all about volcanoes. We've got stuff from the USGS, that's the U.S. Geological Survey.
And some recent news reports, too.
Exactly. And the mission, really, is to pull out the most important nuggets.
So you can get up to speed quickly on this, well, pretty fascinating topic.
We're looking specifically at active volcanoes here in the U.S.
And also a really significant recent event overseas.
It's kind of a deep dive into the power right under our feet.
Sometimes literally in our backyard.
Okay, let's get into it then. When I think U.S. volcanoes, I usually picture, Hawaii or maybe the West Coast. How many active ones are scientists actually, tracking?
Well, what's kind of amazing from the sources is the sheer number.
Oh, yeah.
Scientists count about 169 volcanoes in the U.S. as active.
169. Wow. Active means?
It means they've erupted in the last, say, 10,000 years and are likely to go again.
That's way more than I would have guessed.
It's a lot, yeah.
Wow.
More than most people probably realize.
So where are they all? Are they spread out?
Well, surprisingly, most are actually in Alaska.
Alaska? Really?
Yeah, eruptions happen up there almost every year. The rest are mostly West Coast states and Hawaii.
Okay, like Kilauea in Hawaii. That
Yeah,
one's famous, right?
Definitely. It's known as one of the most active on Earth, been erupting pretty much constantly since, 1983?
Wow. Okay, so Alaska sees the most frequent action.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about threat level, is it the same places?
Right.
What makes a volcano high threat?
Yeah, that's a really important distinction the sources make. Threat isn't just frequency.
Right.
It's also about the kind of eruption it might have.
Oh.
And crucially, how close it is to, people, populated areas.
So Kilauea erupts a lot.
But often with lava flows that are somewhat contained, relatively speaking.
Okay.
Whereas the USGS sees Mount St. Helens in Washington.
Uh-huh. I remember that one.
Right.
Yeah.
They see that as the highest threat in the contiguous U.S.
Why is that?
Because of its potential for really explosive eruptions and the damage that could do to, major population centers nearby.
Okay, got it. So it's the potential impact. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Now, what about this term supervolcano? I hear that sometimes. Do we have those here? Are they, active?
We absolutely do. The sources mention them. Supervolcano eruptions are just on a whole other scale, thousands of times bigger than typical eruptions.
Okay.
And yeah, there are 3 known ones in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yellowstone caldera is the most famous.
Right, Yellowstone. And a caldera it is.
It's basically a giant crater left over from a massive past eruption where the ground collapsed.
Okay.
But there's also Long Valley caldera in California, eastern California,
Mm-hmm.
and Valles caldera up in northern New Mexico.
And they are still considered active.
Yes, active systems. The thing is, they erupt incredibly rarely.
Thankfully.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they were to erupt on that supervolcano scale again, the potential impact is, continental,
Yeah.
maybe even global. It's a totally different risk category.
Wow. That really puts things in perspective.
Mm.
And that kind of power, obviously, isn't just a U.S. thing. We saw a pretty dramatic example recently, didn't we? Across the Atlantic.
Yeah, shifting gears to that recent event, Mount Etna in Italy.
What happened there? That was June 2nd, 2025, right?
That's right. Etna is one of the world's most active volcanoes, definitely Europe's busiest. And it had this huge eruption,
Huge how.
sent a plume of ash and gas several kilometers straight up. There was footage of tourists actually fleeing down the slopes.
Yeah, I saw some of that. Looked incredibly intense, what was going on volcanically.
Well, the early reports suggest a partial collapse.
A collapse?
Yeah, of the northern flank of its southeast crater. And that triggered what's called a pyroclastic eruption.
Pyroclastic, that's the really bad stuff.
That's the lethal stuff. A fast-moving current of superheated gas, ash, rock fragments. Very dangerous.
Okay.
And it also had significant lava flows, intense explosions, even a lava fountain for a bit.
So even a volcano like Etna, which erupts often, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe yearly sometimes.
Yeah, it's very active.
It can still suddenly just ramp up to that kind of intensity.
Exactly. That's a really key point here. Despite its regular activity, this eruption was much more powerful than usual.
You could hear it far away.
Miles away, apparently. They had to close roads. Now, authorities said there wasn't widespread danger to the general population this time.
Okay.
But it just shows how quickly things can change, even with a volcano that's watched really closely.
Right.
So, tying this all together, understanding these earth processes, it's really important.
Yeah. Why specifically?
Well, it affects emergency preparedness, obviously, if you live near one of those 169 U.S. active volcanoes.
Sure.
But also things like global air travel ash plumes can disrupt that significantly. And, just appreciating the sheer power of the planet.
And seeing with Edna how even familiar activity can suddenly escalate.
Precisely. Constant vigilance is needed.
It makes you think, doesn't it? About how scientists worldwide are using all this amazing tech, not just to watch these things.
But to monitor the really subtle shifts, the tiny changes in these huge forces.
Right. And what does all that global monitoring tell us about what might happen next? Not just here, but, anywhere.
It's a big question.
It definitely makes you want to maybe check out those interactive maps the sources mentioned. Seeing where all 169 U.S. volcanoes actually are is, well, it's eye-opening.
It really is. Definitely worth a look.